Hello, my name is Richard Peck, and I'm a writer for a lifetime and a livelihood. My favorite readers are young, but I want everybody in the family to read the same book. I don't believe in separate books for separate generations. And I'm a writer because I had a mother who read to me before I could read for myself. We are who we became in those first 5 fleeting years of life. And in those first 5 years, my mother read to me. I had a mother who read to me as evening proceeded apace. Light the lamp and turn the page, and be any place. Pirates there were, and palaces, and a raft at the river's bend. I warmed my face at the story's light, hoping it wouldn't end. I had a mother who read to me as the afternoon ebbed away, and stories stirred in the darkening wood. And that's why I'm here today. Nobody but a reader ever became a writer.
Richard Peck was born April 15, 1934. Richard was born in Decatur, Illinois, to Virginia and Wayne Peck. Richard studied abroad at England's University of Exeter in the mid-1950s. He got his bachelor's in English from DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana in 1956. After he graduated, he served 2 years in the U.S. Army in Stuttgart, Germany. He worked as a chaplain's assistant, largely doing writing, including sermons and paperwork, during a time of peace between the Korean and Vietnam War. Richard went back to school and earned his master's from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale in 1959. In 1961, he began teaching high school at Glenbrook North High School in Northbrook, Illinois. 3 years later, he moved to New York City to teach English at Hunter College High School in New York City. He became familiar with contemporary adolescent problems while teaching high school. After several years, he got discouraged and quit teaching because it had begun to turn into something that looked weirdly like psychiatric social work. He then decided instead to write books for teenagers that featured the problems he had seen while teaching. His first novel, Don't Look and It Won't Hurt, is about teenage pregnancy. He told the story from the viewpoint of the young mother's younger sister, and the 15-year-old manages to keep her family together, parenting her parents in a role reversal that appeals to readers of this age group. The younger sister is helpful in the sister's recovery after deciding to give her baby up for adoption. In 1977, Peck won the Edgar Award for Best Juvenile with his novel, Are You in the House Alone? In 1990, Peck won the Margaret A. Edwards Award and was the second recipient of this award. It was created to honor an author whose work had been taken to heart by young adults over a period of years, providing an authentic voice that continues to illuminate their experiences and emotions, giving insight into their lives. In 1999 and 2001, he was awarded with the John Newbery Medal. In 2001, he was also awarded the National Humanities Medal. In 2004, Peck won the Scott Odell Award for historical fiction with his novel The River Between Us. An interesting fact I found is that he used to sit in coffee shops and listen to teenagers with a notepad to take in their thoughts and get rid of his before he began writing to really get into their minds. Other works by Peck include The River Between Us, Here Lies the Librarian, and Secrets at Sea. Richard used his knowledge from the classroom to create true-to-life dialogues and scenarios. He stayed connected to young readers by visiting classrooms, libraries, and doing classroom workshops. In Richard's senior year of high school, his English teacher pushed him to master his writing skills, and this process carried him through his career. He taught him how to rewrite, meet deadlines, and gather interesting material, and speak from experience. He wrote loosely on his childhood in Illinois during the 30s and 40s. He described his childhood as being surrounded by elders of all ages and carries these themes throughout his books with strong female influences from characters and grandmothers. We can see this in his book A Long Way from Chicago that was written in 1998. The book is written in a novel in stories that tells the story of Joey and his sister Mary Alice, city children from Chicago who visit their grandma Dowdle in her sleepy rural town during 8 summers between 1929 and 1942. Peck based this setting off of Cerro Gordo, Illinois, that is a rural area. He himself grew up in a rural area and bases the Grandma Dowdle on his mysterious great aunts that he describes as the great American tradition that he came from. This makes A Long Way from Chicago interesting because it can be read as an exaggerated autobiography, a caricature of Peck's own childhood. The Mouse with the Question Mark Tail takes place beneath Buckingham Palace, where an entire kingdom of mice scurry about. Mouse Minor has many questions about his life, and he has no name, no parents, but is left only with a vague memory of outside of the Mews. Mouse Minor goes through the story looking for his identity, where he finds a horse, a gossiping cat, and is abducted by bats who take him to the queen. Later he finds out that he's heir to the throne, and his aunt that raised him has to convince the queen that his name is Ludovic and he is the lost heir to the throne. In The Best Man, we follow the main character, Archer McGill, and him being in 2 weddings. At the first wedding, when he was 6, he split his dress pants with no underwear underneath and walked down the aisle bare bottom exposed to the whole world. In the next 5 years, he looks up to 4 role models. His role models are his grandpa, the great architect, his dad, the great vintage car customizer, his Uncle Paul, and finally, the 4th, Mr. McLeod, a teacher, in fact the first male teacher in the history of his school. Throughout the book, his Uncle Paul and his teacher, Mr. Leod, fall in love, and Archer becomes the best man in his 2nd wedding. Peck wrote this book from 2014 to 2016 when gay marriage became legal in Illinois. Throughout his writing, I came up with a couple of themes that were reoccurring. Coming of age, the theme of independence, female heroes, nostalgia, and children branching out from their peers. In a speech, Richard said, "After 12 novels, I find I have only one theme. It is simply that you will never grow up until you begin to think and act independently of your peers." I liked reading A Long Way from Chicago and The Best Man because they were more realistic and could actually happen in real life and told the kind of history of where Richard came from in A Long Way from Chicago, and that was pretty interesting to read. I didn't really enjoy The Mouse with the Question Mark Tail. It just wasn't really my style of what I enjoy to read. Something that surprised me about Richard Peck's writing is that he received critical acclaim for addressing topics such as rape, suicide, and the death of a loved one when targeting younger adult audiences, but I think that it makes the books more relatable and can help students get through harder times and understand more broad topics that they're going to be introduced to in school. It was cool the more that I learned about Richard Peck's life that I saw his life through his books. He really takes what he has learned, what he has seen in the classroom, and everything through his life, and you can read it in the pages of his work, which I thought was really cool. I would absolutely recommend him to others as an author to read because I really enjoyed reading his writing and his quotes and about his life, and I would actually like to read more of his work because as I was doing research, I found more titles that seemed interesting to me that I wanted to read, so I would absolutely recommend Richard Peck as an author. Richard Peck died May 23rd, 2018 in New York City. I love the quote he said in his autobiography. It was junior high students, the puberty people, who taught me how to be a writer. They taught me that people don't read fiction to be educated. They read fiction to be reassured, to be given hope.
A story for the young is an alternative your peer group leader never told you you had. A novel is not what is. A novel is what if. As our sister in writing, Barbara Kingsolver, has said, I don't ever write about real people. Art is supposed to be better than that. If you want a slice of life, look out the window. And we write in a far more demanding field than Barbara Kingsolver does. We write for the young. And so we better be not writing for our inner child. And we better not be guidance counselors. We're not in this for therapy for ourselves. And we don't have answers for anybody. We only have questions. A story is a question, not an answer. We write for the young, and so we write for people we never were. Because even if they are in high school now, they remember no decade before the 1990s. And while they may well be sexually active, they remember no president before Clinton. We can't imagine that and don't want to. Writing for the young is an enormous leap of faith, an enormous imaginative leap. We can't know what it's like to be our readers, but we don't write what we know. We write what we wonder at. And yet we have to create characters they are willing to become, at least for the length of the story. Because though many an aspiring writer has still not figured this out, a story is about the reader, not the writer. A story had better never be the autobiography of the author. A story had far better be the biography of the person the reader would like to be. And in order to write those biographies, we have to take giant steps away from ourselves. Writing for us is an amazingly uncentering experience. We must uncenter in ways that most people would not dream of doing. But we are not most people. The urge for self-expression, self-portrayal of our own youthful selves is just one more pitfall in a field full of them. The young have already heard these stories about what it was like to be young long ago, in some now, say, forgotten era, say the late 1980s. And they don't believe any of that could have happened in a free country. More to our point, they would not pay money to read it. And so, in creating characters, a useful rule of thumb is this: the one character your story never needs is you.